Weeks on weeks on weeks of FCL Valorant action have finally culminated to the end of the split, and we're here on a Monday afternoon of all things. Not our typical Thursday, but we're happy still to be here, and it's the grand finals of this split before we head on into the LAN next month. My name is Infernosis, joined here by Dallas, and we're also joined by a single university who had both of their rosters make it to the grand final today.
Yeah, Cumberland College able to hold this thing down, ride it out, and just demolish every single person they ran into. Or school, better yet, knowing that there's a group of 5 in every team they face. But, I mean, insanity nonetheless. Knowing that both these teams deserved it, even more so the Destiny roster I was mentioning just over the course of this entire season, unrightfully put to tier 2, kind of being in that rising star area, just now at a point where showing that, well, should they really? Because now they're in the team, facing the number 1 squad. Lily coming into this thing as one of the bottom seeds overall. So it's just an absolute insanity knowing that these two are just chalking it up between each other, probably feet away, already having their own miniature land here for the day.
I mean, yeah, I think they're in the same exact arena, same venue, right, for their school, and they're in their, what do we call that? What is Shaka? What's the word you used behind the scenes? Was it arena? Can't remember the term for it. Didn't really have to worry about it when I was in college, but neither the way. Lab, that's what it is. The lab, their esports lab. That was the term that I felt fit best for it. They talked about it a little bit last week at the end of the interview we had for Destiny, saying they're probably going to be yelling. They're probably going to be pretty vocal, right? It's going to be all up in arms. So let's see how true that happens to hold, but let's also see where the players themselves are going to be heading to besides the lab they're in currently. Let's jump on over to our map ban selection screen. And unfortunately, Cumberland, we will have to fine you your entire prize pool because you've now made our overlay completely useless. Who is who? I have no idea. I think we color graded it, but that never works for me. I think it was like grayscale versus the normal, but all I know is Destiny had first ban because they ended up getting relegated to Team A, I think, in this case. So they took down Split, followed by Phoenix taking out Fracture, which is the same thing they banned this weekend. They really do not want to see Fracture.
And no, I mean, not many teams realistically do. We're not probably going to go through the entirety of what I want to say in LAN, going with the same exact maps over and over again, just looking at that Haven, Lotus Ascent, and as disappointing as it is to say out loud, and by any means necessary, a team can be more than willing to prove me wrong, but at least kind of looking at what we're dealing with so far, that map selection would be relatively standard, but no one even noticed between these two teams, knowing that they're not kind of flexing things out makes a little bit more sense. I can guarantee you this is where they probably screen themselves 9 times out of 10 if they actually do get on the server between each other, and knowing that this is the place to really chalk it out and say, hey, look, this is when there's actually a bit of stakes on the line. There's probably not many leagues where we actually see them go up against each other with this actual kind of stake of seeding into the grand finals. So there's going to be something really to actually work for, knowing that, well, all the reads should be present. But the most important thing is whether or not who can actually land their shots more so. Because both these teams, I feel like, even their seeding was relatively far apart, their shots and just their general synergies feel so darn close that, I mean, it should be literally 1 versus 2.
Yeah, we assume they play against each other a lot. So there's also going to be this like inkling of like, okay, we know what they do, we know what they like, we know how it's going to go. And in a best of 5, when there's only so many maps to pick from, right, you're going to have to play against your competition's good maps. And for Destiny, that's Haven, right? We highlighted that. If they played 60% of the talent that we had seen on Destiny on Haven against all the teams prior in the semester against UGA Black, then we knew that they were going to dominate UGA Black. Look at that map win, like 13-2, 13-3. And Phoenix is also good on Haven, but it just feels like Destiny was the best team in the SEO for this map. Turn that around to the other map, and you look over at Lotus and Ascends, and it feels like Phoenix were by far the best teams for this map and dominated pretty much anybody that they ran into, which was expected for them, right, being the number 1 team in the league. But still, the way in which they did it against really solid teams, GMU, JMU, all the UGA rosters, right, they did it in such a way that they proved and wanted to stamp it in everyone's mind, these are our maps, they play similarly, we're going to dominate those. So having to see those back to back makes it so that Destiny really have to feel like they win map 1 on Haven, their pick, something that they have looked comfortable on, and I would give the edge to be the favorites for, but it doesn't get easier because you still have to play Pearl, which if you get there, you have a good chance, Destiny. Phoenix do not like that map. They look poor in comparison to their other maps. They're still good at it because it's still Phoenix, but they look poor in comparison, and then the final is Icebox, and man, I don't think I've ever seen Phoenix actually pick that map at any other selections, but they've not lost it so far across their stats, and because of that, you'd have to pull a big upset once again to be able to shut them down.
Yeah, I mean, and even then more so looking at just kind of how they play this entire series out. I mean, there's obviously an expectation to draw this out, even for the sake between each other, to kind of go ahead and make sure that there's not too much of a bad blood to where it's just more so of like a grudge match between brother teams, knowing they're already both guaranteed to go to land. That this is purely just for seeding. And that's a big thing in its own right, knowing that who's going to be getting a first round bye, because there's not enough points here to really put them high enough on the board, I would think, to really give them that first round bye, knowing that, keep in mind, I mean, UJ Black already kind of guaranteed themselves something, reaching playoffs, and even then more so winning that last split. So it's really who can sleep a little bit later in the day, who can give themselves a little bit more time to wake up, warm up, and kind of play some matches, sets, see what's going on there, and really get themselves in the mood. And better yet, watch any kind of, just VODs, or better yet, even just watch a live game of the other team playing to say, how is this going to work? Are they doing anything different today? Or is there any other team that really just, this kind of we haven't really noticed before, and we can kind of incorporate that in our own right? So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here, but in my opinion, I think sleep is going to be the number one thing.
Oh, all right. Map 1 officially underway, and Destiny will be your team on the left. They have, we finally got a color difference that I can absolutely tell here. Thank you, Shaka. This was the big question mark going into this series. Phoenix would be the team on your right. They are on offense first. We saw a whole lot from Shooter this last weekend over on CVal. They were forced to be reckoned with. J-Phone actually wasn't as a major of a force on the Vice when it came to Lotus for the secondary map for them, but the story still unfurled in their direction with a standout showcase coming from Wadi and F-Sow in a combo. If that continues here today for Haven, which is expected, Destiny will have to make sure their defense starts off with the right foot. The pistol will be the right way to do that, especially with the A push that's seemingly coming through, and Phoenix have read into it knowing that Case was going to go all the way down just on the opposing side of Stack, and they've gotten 2 first bloods to their name because of it.
I mean, it's kind of a read that we see out of almost anybody that when you look at the way the Case plays. I mean, looking at the aggression, looking at this player, I mean, likes to go ahead and put the off in his hands or an outlaw every now and again. Looking to get that aggression, find that first blow, wanting to play that duelist role to a T. And especially on Haven, is expected from your Jet to be able to manage to do that. But even then, still, Shooter opening things up, finding 2 off the rip, and more so, better yet, Wadi having the shots there to completely just go ahead and shut that guy down without even a chance to retort. Is just studying its own right, which any team could do, but Wadi and crew is one of those guys where it's like, it's not much of an actual study, it's just a hit made and just a day in the business.
A lot of the times you'll anticipate that your Tejo won't be the most impactful fragger. For maps like Lotus, their role and responsibility is so heavily put onto being there for the post plant. For both B and A, Teo's responsibility is a little bit easier to play heavy for frags. They want to be more initiating than actual post plant. For C, post plant's super strong. Planting in default for C long, having your Teo sit all the way there in C main. These things work to a T, to a solid point, because your Teo needs to make sure that they survive to that point to essentially be that KJ, to be the nanoswarm toss over there, to be the extra utility on top for the icing of the cake. But you're going to see a lot of frags on the offense when it's either towards B or towards A out of Wadi, and Destiny will have to try to figure out where they can either eke out a frag here or there or shut down impact players, because there's a pretty big opportunity here coming towards B and Case. Oh my god! One more body shot for damage has to force J-Phone back. Case now just hip firing, and the whole team of Phoenix goes, okay, let's not tuck ourselves in towards Case's POV. Let's rush through garage and get here towards C.
I gotta get a replay of that and a slow-mo. I'm genuinely curious of what pixel has landed there. But I mean, everything else beyond that, we haven't seen too much action besides obviously J-Phone getting that pickup, which we did see Case trying to go ahead and manage, but just wasn't given the time or nor the place for. So with the final coming out right there through B main on that window, you see the rest of the team trying to go ahead and find any leniency of space here on the map, but they just haven't really had to give it to them so far. The timing of Kyoto just being unfortunate, they're able to find one more in the process. It makes it a 1v1 with the spike going off, and there it is. Kyoto with the salvo, not able to find the kill, but really close to making this manageable with his 9 bullets in hand. That could be enough off a singular shot to make it a 1-1 start between these two squads.
And Destiny kind of committed a lot more than a lot of teams would for a second round, right? And the hayway given off of the amazing Marshall shot that I believe we got the replay for. So many little things Dallas have to make a second round recoverable. Please. Here it is. So many little things have to make that second round recoverable. In Case starting them off, and then the so quick utility dump by Destiny to force back the rest. Here's the flick up. Oh! Can't even see the mouse move in time. But with the whole fact that Phoenix were forced to stage back over towards Garage and then still weren't comfortable to step in towards C or even out of Link, all of these make it so that Destiny could continuously poke, continuously prod, get damage out. J-Phone also being body shot. That's an easy cleanup. All of these give Destiny the best shot possible to get that win. And now they can ride that lap of luxury and pray that Phoenix don't commit too heavy for this third round, which they've got a little bit here with JP having a Guardian, but with time we'll have to tell. Anyone can be dangerous no matter the weapon in the hands for either of these rosters.
I mean, they're so used to going up against each other. I mean, right? I mean, at least we would expect it. I mean, at the end of the day, every little thing does matter. And whenever you have training partners like this, I mean, you go ahead and set that standard for yourself and the rest of the team to get the job done. But speaking of the job, Case is the one going ahead and clocking in and getting it ripped off. I mean, off the get-go, it would have fine too. Going ahead and facilitating that aggression that we're so used to seeing out of the guy and making sure to set the tone for the round relatively early. And we saw it there in round number 1. I mean, able to go ahead and kind of get that aggression there. Now able to go ahead and kill his counterpart, a shooter. But Wadi wasn't there to get that shutdown immediately. Wasn't there to set the tone and just completely snuff out that attempt. But is still alive now to at least find a retort in some form or fashion as the round starts to continue on, because they are committing to this A site. They want to find this presence. They want to get this, knowing that there is a player here and knowing that's probably their best shot. Speaking of shots, there's Wadi starting off with one. Case is still alive. Maybe not well, but is definitely shooting well. Finding the ace for the round and giving himself that Blade Storm. Sure, there's a couple more ultimates you'd like to possibly have, but I mean, if this guy has an operator in hand, which I'm expecting to come out soon, he's at least got an alternative.
The thing is with Destiny, though, is they actually can rotate that op player between them. It doesn't just have to be Case, right? And that's the other thing that's super convenient or maybe dangerous about Destiny's overall Haven play and the way that we've seen them throughout the season, more specifically the last 3 to 4 weeks, play on this map. They're very unexpected, and you have to be, especially if you are a team that likes to move the operator. Can't just always be holding on C side. It has to be unpredictable. It has to be in every direction. We've seen it through garage doors successfully for Case. We've seen it off towards A, held in, I believe, by your Omen player, I think at one point we saw, and then it got traded immediately back to Case. Like they're moving it around. There's so many little things that Destiny do that really impress me and can really throw a lot of teams out of the momentum, as Case try to go pretty heavy-handed off here towards garage, or sorry, in towards mid window, takes a step towards attacker spawn, and well, pays the price. Geo gets a good look back the other direction, and now is fortunate a spot where, yeah, they can safely rotate away to stage back up on the A site. They take damage in the process, and Phoenix know that they're looking to try to pursue, and so they're going to have to start pushing into these lone players like your one here inside garage, and that's likely a fight that should go 1-for-1 if you see Phoenix get the expected result, especially with an initiator to flash through for it. They don't even get the one.
No, they don't really finding much out of this at all. But I mean, considering that we do see Phoenix just going ahead, pushing the agenda, moving all this momentum over towards the C site, I mean, just off rip, we're understanding that they want to take something. I mean, I do like this dedication out of them. In that last round, we saw the same thing. They're sitting on an eco, not really looking all that hot, but they still know that, I mean, if they go for the rotation, they're just going to be losing space that they've already fought to acquire. So they just want to make the most of every single action they've managed to go ahead and culminate inside of a round-to-round basis. So able to go ahead and at least have one player live, being Kyoto. In the meantime, we have a possibility of knocking a couple players out, but he's got to make these reads. Has the drone available, has util, but I mean, last thing you want to do is just go ahead and kind of give any of that up. You're just giving the round to Phoenix, you're keeping the gun in hand, you're hoping for some exit frags, and maybe go ahead and give yourself some compensation in the process. But it seems like Wadi already has a bit of an idea of this guy's camping out somewhere. Let's not overextend it.
Well, they're wanting to still take this player down, and Kyoto is spotted now, and it's going to be a quick swing by 2, probably all 3, but Kyoto does still strip away 1 weapon in the process. The Phoenix are keeping the game very much so close. Back and forth is the nature we expect to see from this series, and that's going to mean that there's going to be quite a few rounds where quite a big discrepancy from previous series from either of these two teams, where they're used to having big 6-7 round sprees where the other team is constantly in a state where they have to question, can I buy, is it an eco, do we thrifty, and you never have to worry about that. You're going to have to worry about that, and it's going to be something to manage for your opponents and be like, okay, we saw them with this round. Let's poke for a peaked gunfight and maybe see what they're holding. Let's try to realize what ultimates we're expected to see against us here, and maybe what utility is being used to take guesses to how's this playing out. FSAO did this just on Saturday as well, using a From the Shadows on Lotus to get into the back towards defender spawn. You did your homework, Destiny, and actually watched your sister team or brother team here play into that series. You know they like to do that, but you shut it down nonetheless. They would Jiraj auto, and you've actually got the better end thanks to Case lapping everyone down on the approach through C long. It's only 2 remaining, and Shooter's all alone in Garage, now only 43 HP.
Yeah, looking to just go ahead and get something else here. I mean, Phoenix already going ahead and invest in the Armageddon, which is insanity considering that you were in a 2v3 scenario. Geo there to go ahead and clean up the rest of the stragglers, making sure that this third round comes alive for Destiny. But I mean, even then more so when you talk about kind of the strings of rounds that happen, you don't get to see much of these two teams at the end of the day. When you look at the kind of big picture of stuff, and if you look at the VODs all season, you're not going to be seeing much because there's not nearly as much game to watch because of those sprees and how quickly those games end. To where we mentioned it, I mean, obviously as a joke starting off before this broadcast of these two teams just kind of decided, hey, let's play rock, paper, scissors to just see who wins this thing out since we're already guaranteed a slot anyways. But that's going to be one of the big things. If this is the one game to watch if you are an SEL player, and especially if you're going to LAN, because this is going to be the most of both these teams that you are going to see through the entirety of the season. This is a stress test for both these squads, and you're not going to see anything else like it out of any of these other teams that we've seen thus far. So this is going to be your best chance to understand what puts these guys on the rafters, what makes things difficult for them. Where are these corners they like tucking in? What are these positions they like taking? How are they going to overwhelm it? And you can see right here, at least for the last two, you got at least 2 rounds worth of VOD to go ahead and see how Phoenix likes to take this C side.
Tied 3 versus 3 in a post-plant scenario. Your Teo, like I mentioned before, if every time you hit the C side, they're going to fall back as fast as humanly possible into C main, if not all the way back towards attacker spawn. They just want to make sure that those salvos can continuously be there. And you can kind of keep them back if you know where they are, if you're Wadi, but chances of that are very slim. And it's a great read by Destiny to say, okay, they have the Armageddon. We know they're going to try to force us forward. The spacing for that was not perfect, which means that you actually were able to leave J-Phone just tucked over towards that corner, but you're able to trade at least one of the process. Wadi lapping through Garage, gets a chance for more. Now has to just sit there, use the salvos and bait and stall as it was stuck to half, and you could get this if you're Cased as Wadi realized that. Blades out, doesn't get the kill, and it's a clutch for Wadi for Phoenix, and another round win to their name. But they just get to watch. Cool guys don't look at explosions, y'all. The spike detonate just around them.
Yeah, even though it understands the place, been able to go ahead and tuck themselves away, but even more so, I mean, looking at this, it's just a beautiful attempt coming out from Case, trying to get the job done, able to go ahead and find plenty of effort back there towards that spawn, and even then still making the call to Kyoto, saying, trust me, dude, go ahead, stick that thing out, get it to half. That's the most important thing at the end of the day, but everything beyond that, it just comes down to making sure that your duelists, who, I mean, keep in mind, is supposed to kind of die initially on that retake, able to stay alive and make the most out of that situation and just completely make it look like just his situation to manage. But at a 3-3, I mean, clearly it's everybody's. Got to keep it as close as possible. Got to make sure that everybody's pitching in their own right. And whenever you lose a singular player, that's a lot of utility. That's going to make that difference at the end of the day.
Quick sprint for Phoenix. They want the ace site, and they're engaging pretty heavy-handed now with Shooter. Let's pay the price. Geo, good frag. Headshot through a smoke. Rips them apart. Now J-Phone trying to play all the way lower side of heaven. Gets themselves 2, shockingly. Almost 3, but FCell takes the lap of luxury. They each have 2 apiece. And very well could be a buddy ace between them. His Case is now the only one remaining. And stepping all the way in from attacker spawn, having wrapped from inside mid-window once again. Something Case has been pretty reliant on. And we're likely to see that over on Pearl as well if the 4th map comes through, as they really want to try to abuse as much of the gaps, as much of the missing links in the armor, so to say, for Phoenix. The Case trapped away by a Cypher cage, flashed out as well, will just fall back, wisening to the idea that maybe it's better to hold a rifle for another round than to try to wield it here with no success past a limited option.
Just an elongated scenario here, just going ahead, giving it up. And I mean, I really can't blame him, but I mean, if there's anybody who could really actually make a couple kills off of absolutely nothing, it would be Case. I mean, keep in mind this together, we've already seen heating up, able to go ahead and already find an ace inside of this match alone. And we're only in round number 7, keep in mind. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential here for what that guy can do, but even then still not overextending, because, I mean, I'm sure they probably know, I mean, looking at Phoenix, more than likely to be back towards that spawn, going to end up pushing towards that defender side spawn through that tunnel and just seeing what's kind of available to him. Because, I mean, this guy, that's the last thing you want to run into. But seeing even then more so what else is available in the bigger grand scheme is seeing those 2 neural tests on hand. We're not seeing too many actual scuffles of just being 1v1s or just kind of being those one-player scenarios. We're seeing initial trades of 2 or 3 just looking to go ahead and mow down not only who is there, but able to push the agenda fast enough right afterwards to keep that pedal going, keep that momentum, and find yourself that second so you don't let them get away from you.
Geo stuck off towards Plat. Wow, Shooter misses that. No, so does F0, and J-Phone just steps into the final round of Geo's Sheriff. And Phoenix, who had everything to contend for in this round, and Destiny with nothing, have fortunately just been biting the literal bullet in the approach into C-Long. Speed is such a strong suit for Phoenix's entire offense. They were trying to usurp control quickly from Destiny, but a single player and some utility that is maybe slightly discoordinated from Phoenix on the approach, catching Shooter for the first, stages up and sets them up for a possible perfect round thereafter, because there's so many weapons that are collectible there, and you have 4 players nearby to be that can still grab those, and you'll give up A site. That's not a big problem whatsoever to you. You can retake this quite nicely in the later points, and this plant will doom to go down any moment now, but they want to make sure they have the best plays possible for it. There's 3 options. Over by box in the corner, the Radiant stack default are just below heaven, so you can stack a player through to hell, and that's what they'll do here. They'll have all those weapons they gained on C to retake the site.
I mean, look at this insanity, the discipline and respect coming out from Destiny so far. It is a 5v2. Any other scenario, anywhere else, you will see head hunting occurring right now, but it's the fact that Destiny still go ahead and give all the respect they can to Phoenix, saying these 2 guys alone could tear us up, so play it together. Still make sure we hold on to as many weapons as possible. Go ahead and just completely suffocate these guys, because Wadi's already found one, and it took Kyoto to have to make that trade, losing that one singular player. But at the end of the day, you're not stressing that too much. You've held on to the majority of your guns. He's sitting at 1950 and dying during that round. Will find enough on his own right to buy a gun in the next round, but seeing everything else, is you just don't want to lose that for everyone, because they're going to be cutting it so close when you add in the utility as another factor. So, I mean, just making sure that they are playing this as slowly as possible, giving respect to each other, especially off rip where you see Geo able to kind of single-handedly hold this site. What we've seen this guy been doing all season to every squad. Then, I mean, it makes sense to not only do that, but even more so for Phoenix here to call that timeout, knowing that things are staying close and this isn't something they're used to.
On top of that, you don't even know if this is the side that you're more concerned about for it, right? You need to get control over this attacking half, because who knows if your defense will go clean. Destiny are good on both ends of Haven. They have always been good at both ends of Haven. While they could have a favored side, who are you to say that it's going to be the same way against your style of play? And honestly, with the way that Phoenix have lost a couple of these rounds, like that last one there, obviously, against a single-handed Sheriff from Geo, anything could happen. You really want to try to sniff as many, or nip out as many of the problems before they grow into a festering wound that broils up and leads to a very, very, well, horrid results, which would be the Destiny roster somehow upsetting Phoenix, which would be still entertaining. Cumberland still come away with the win. We can confidently say Cumberland will win this grand final, but these teams and these players would like to have the confidence to say that it'll be their team under this university to do so. As it's a neat go around for Phoenix, 50 across 3 Sheriffs, a Bulldog, and a Vandal. I also used the Neural Theft last round, Dallas, for Destiny, on top of having so much respect and not just trying to headhunt when they knew it was a 5v2. They even Neural Thefted in that spot because they wanted to know for sure where these players were and not risk a possible loss of life, because they knew they are playing for the long con. They're playing for the halftime win, the rounds in the future, and giving up a single, if not just more, which they only gave up 1, would be ultimately a big problem for the later rounds when the echo's already been so back and forth. Give as much of an advantage as you possibly can.
Right, and that's going to be one thing we're going to be looking at least in the next round. Seeing whether or not we actually see a spree of 2 come from one side once it gets around to that kind of margin of error there towards the end of a half, where you're guaranteeing that 7-5 for yourself, because that 2-round leniency is going to be massive going into that second half, making sure that you can only just do that one more time. And, I mean, you're out of there scot-free relatively early, all things considered. But looking at it so far, having this behold is just not the best case, at least for JP. Looking to go ahead and try to find a little bit more to work with. Destiny just knows what this placement is, know where these players are working, and Wadi's holding that flank. We even see so able to just go ahead and be there for the assistance. And as the stick comes through, the Armageddon rolls out. We see that initial player go ahead and get picked off, the cross being held there, knowing somebody's nearby, and Wadi making a very, very clean call to say, maybe I shouldn't go for this because all 3 are probably there, and that's going to be a gun I possibly lose and just don't want to.
Yeah, no major waste in that round, I feel like, for Destiny either, considering some of those weapons were freebies anyways, right? They didn't have to use an ultimate. They forced out an ult from Wadi, and that's a really important one, especially for the final 3 to 4 rounds where you're questioning if it is possible for Wadi to get those 8 pips once again, because it's taken them you know, how many rounds up to this point? Just short of 10, right? Now, during the 10th, they only have 8 kills. They've only died 5 times, right? The chances for them to get those 8 pips are so slim to none. They don't really have to worry about that Armageddon for the remainder of this, and they'll have theirs likely to come back up once again soon. As there is a little bit of a brawl with the standard utility dump you'd expect off towards A lobby, using the salvos to flush back, flash around the end for breach. Team wanted to get in, stalled out by a counter salvo from the opposing side, Teo. It's this little bit of push and pull, this tug of war off to the side, and it has to break at some point, and they break it heavy and hard. Rolling Thunder comes out. Keanu, check your corner, and F-Sal gifted a freebie, and there's no chance for even more because Destiny go, okay, why did he go that far forward? I'm falling back.
Yeah, just looking really here for anything. I mean, Phoenix, even though they found themselves that first blood, they still don't want to go ahead and over-engage here. This may even be a point where they're just looking to see if JP can make some clean room and through the middle of the map, give themselves a little bit of breathing space so they can say, maybe we make that exchange. Because right now, as I said earlier, they want to work with whatever is given to them. And they know that if a singular player is dead towards A, that's one less player towards A. And we may see a reallocation, but they know that understandably so, if you go ahead and press the gear now, you could find yourself that space, that play to go ahead and just overwhelm that site and knock out the majority of your players. Nothing to know with that. They know that players are somewhere else on the map. They know that B site should be free. They know the pitch is probably going to come through, and they're going to play a little bit more pressure towards these sides and towards that flank to kind of keep everything in check because that neural theft now being invested, they're waiting for the element of surprise to figure out where these guys are going to start to retake from. And as we can clearly see, they're going for the pinch.
Sal stuck off towards Gong. Able to get more just yet. JP deals with more, and wow. 2 players in the final few moments to get the last 4 remainders for Destiny. And it's back and forth once again, and this is coming at the hands of essentially usurpers, it feels like. That being Phoenix against the expected favorites of Destiny, how good they've been in this map. It being so back and forth, you really expect to see this for the highest level of play, but you'd still expect maybe a spree of 3 rounds for one right in a row. Maybe problems here or there, but with the thrifty rounds that have been going for either side, and the kills that have been successful, and the ultimates that have not been getting held onto, which is such a plaguing problem in Collegiate Dallas, it's refreshing to see them being used purely for the sake of being used, and we can go, oh, well, that wasn't a great usage of it. It doesn't matter. At least we're seeing them actually come out and the teams try to make impact past that point. Like the Rolling Thunder. They tried. They had a player move in fast after it for Destiny, but it just didn't go in the way they anticipated. His case is a little overzealous with that swing directly in front of platform on B site in the middle, gets punished for it as you'd anticipate. And while you do have a player close by, you're breached to maybe help things out. You're still in a player deficit, and Phoenix are going to wisen up to saying, okay, we know that. We're going to leave our Sentinel as expected, somewhere to lap in late, and our team's going to commit pretty heavy here towards A.
So seeing how things are, I mean, talk about this A site. I mean, we've seen a big emphasis towards this area of the map over and over again from Phoenix. I mean, understandably so. I mean, we saw it on round number 1. I mean, they get the placements, they get the angles, they understand how to clear it, whether it be slow, whether it be quick, and even then still more so, Shooter, even after that first run, has make a very, very clear statement to say, I know how to clear this side. If there's anywhere I know how to dash in, tail in that Joker, and get a couple frags off the back of it, A site is the place. And they're just waiting for the retake to come underway so they can find that final frag and not drop a singular individual in the process. As we see that Phoenix has hit that, you know, guaranteed even halfway mark for this first half and is looking to do it once more because, well, the economy of Destiny isn't really there to fight back.
Sorry, I'm distracted by the bear. Nonetheless, even though the eco isn't there, and this is something Destiny were really hoping for, with the way that they've been playing cautiously with the economy throughout the last 5 or 6 rounds of this half, this isn't the best picture to be in. You do still have the Armageddon, which would be a great way to stall, which arguably could be the best way to get a foot in the door properly for Destiny's defense. The other thing to do would be to get a frag at range with one of the rifles you do have, whether it be a Guardian, anything of the sort, and then use the Armageddon to flush Phoenix's players out so you could then move into that space to collect it. But you also have something like a Bladestorm for Case, which is a great eco ult, meaning that they don't need a proper weapon. You can give them a shorty as a secondary, and they could dash in, get a frag, and then try to immediately shorty a player thereafter. But Case goes against their doppelganger Shooter despite their back and forth nature of playing down through short and sewer and then rotating towards long, and they eventually get red, countered, and dealt with in accordance, and now finally you see something back for Destiny.
Yeah, just looking for something else on the field. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, able to capitalize off that initial frag, knowing it's up towards that A site, knowing it's an eco too. as I mentioned, it's more so, do you get to the point where you want to be taking these close quarter fights? Do you want to be pushing the agenda once you find that initial frag? And even more so, if you do end up doing it, what kind of ranges are we dealing with? Because A is pretty nitty-gritty and pretty close quarters, which allows those Stingers and those Sheriffs to shine and find the shutdown that Destiny were looking for with these guns that weren't exactly all that expensive.
6-6 half did we expect to see? We expected to see a whole lot from this, but just how back and forth that has been so refreshing overall to see. But let's remind how the first round went. It was Cumberland Phoenix dashing their way onto the A site and flawlessly at that, taking down everyone from Destiny. And Phoenix has done that so well throughout every series in the SEL and in leagues prior, like their match in CVAL this weekend on Saturday. It's hard pressed to envision that they lose out on another pistol, and they'll at least have the advantage of being able to take the guess that it's going to be a very fast rush either towards B or towards A. And even if it's a plant that they can't shut down and they have to retake, there's not much utility in a pistol round that they have to contend against, and it's mostly just be fast, be smooth, and make sure that any defender utility that is there doesn't really have proper time to play for the long con stall that you would expect for the remainder of the half now that Destiny are in their offense.
Found my wire.
Being on pistols also sets a different kind of tempo for these rounds. I mean, obviously, when it comes around to number one, you're kind of looking for something. You're waiting to kind of see what exposes itself. But even then, on round 13, it's completely different because you've already assessed your threats. You know who's going to, feel themselves. Know what kind of aggressions are coming through. Because even more so, I mean, that's a study problem right there where I said, I mean, look at a case right off rip, probably pushing up that A side. So knowing that here that you don't really expect Phoenix to be pushing up like that, it's a bit of a curveball that can actually be employed because the study game doesn't really come into play anymore.
Pistol's so successful for Phoenix in round 13. J-Phone knows that he has full lock and control off towards B. The two remaining for Destiny are going to go ahead and take the rotate on over towards A. And Case can go ahead and get Heaven if they truly wanted to. We may see the exact plant attempt we saw Phoenix do just below Heaven. They'll do slightly to the side. But now with Case being flushed out by utility, now stunned, hiding in a cloudburst, it's going to be perfect shots required to net them a frag. And look at the quick swing by Kyoto. They wanted two and they got it. Now just a 2-on-2. FSal gets another dink off towards Case. The chances for that, unreal through that crate, but it does not matter. FSal clutches things up. They're top fragging alongside Shooter in this series for Phoenix. And they'll get the pistol as expected once again. This time not nearly as flawless, but about as what you'd expect for a team of this caliber, having to be on defense instead of their typical offense where that speed has been so gifted to them.
30 seconds left.
Yeah, just looking for, I mean, the way that we're looking at Phoenix really just try to facilitate these rounds, even to just get the momentum strolling into their flavor. And we haven't seen too much of that just yet. I mean, obviously we have, but it's been on a round-to-round basis. When it's on that round number one, it has a little bit more weight to it. Knowing that you're going to that round number two, knowing that you're going to have that guaranteed advantage, and not to the same degree where we see, obviously, the final round of that first half, turn number 12, able to go ahead and kind of have those Stingers and Sheriff against that, but knowing that we're going to have some fully auto weapons against what was going to be more so like semi-autos or judges or sheriffs and things of the sort. So they're going to be shifting their game plan over towards somewhere else in the map, knowing that even then, during that last round, CU Phoenix couldn't really kind of close the gap out the back of it. I'm surprised they're not going back to that A site, being on the attacking side now, possibly trying to close that out. So already finding a pretty good exchange, flooding through the back of that garage. We see that everybody on Destiny is going for an alternative route, but the judge is just still too darn much to really go up against.
You don't have to swing this now, though. Gerado's stuck with nothing. Yeah, they can collect a Bulldog, but it's a 3-on-1. Spike is, yeah, in your hands, but your rotate options towards C or towards B are directly accessible in lines of sight. FSAO does still get the final one with that judge. Jury and Executioner, 4 kills in the round. And Phoenix will, do what they were incapable of doing at the start of the first half, winning the pistol and getting their bonus thereafter. And there's your third now for Destiny, and they did fairly heavily commit in that 14th round, leading them to, well, where you'd like to see rifles in their hands. Dallas is nothing but a bunch of glorified sheriffs, and these 6 shooters, I don't know, will be hard-pressed to find nearly as much success, especially with the fear factor that FSAO's judge just gave to you, and the fact you didn't really have to drop too many weapons of importance in that prior round, and it's just going to be, yep, let's use some utility, let's close the gap, let's get on in towards A-side as fast as we can with our roster.
I mean, they want to try, but slowing things down a little bit. I mean, obviously they are clearly frightened of trying to see what exactly this guy's going to do and where his placement going to be. Because obviously over towards that A site, we saw him clear up 3 towards C during that last round, even with a little bit of space. So, I mean, it's a bit of a stressful predicament to be putting yourself into of whether or not you know if this guy's going to be there, whether or not you know that a singular player is going to be one-tapping you just because of the proximity of your body to theirs rather than the actual kind of shots and placements towards the head they're expecting of, well, the Sheriffs and the Phantoms and the Vandals we're so used to seeing.
Oh, what a shot from Case. Headshot through the corner. Wadi eventually gets body shot to finish the job. But look, off inside mid on B, Geo goes through unexpected, completely unknown, could swing through, and there's been no calm for it because JP didn't see it. But here's the moment. If you get spotted on this edge, Geo doesn't see. Oh, JP finally sees him in range and can deal with him there with the stinger. It's such a problem in this point thereafter. Smile, Sheriff in hand, one player below in hell. J-Phone's Bulldog, though, bites a bit harder. And Gerardo, who can get some damage off, just has no sightline whatsoever. It'll be dark cover, paranoia, or anything else. The retinas are completely obfuscated. And Phoenix get 3 in a row in the start of the second half and bridge that closity. This is the first time we've seen 3 rows strung together.
I mean, it's off the get-go of a singular round, not just the pistol, but I would say more so the middle one. I mean, the pistol round, sure, that's a culminated effort from everybody just going ahead and becoming something. But, I mean, that round number 2, when we see Fasah able to go ahead and find that with the judge, but even more so off the back of that, having just a potential gun to kind of carry that on, the rest of the team understanding that they have that pressure now, knowing that that intimidation factor is going to be taking place because we see the level of respect coming through for both these teams for each other, that they know that any little kind of mental scuff, any kind of mental mark, dent is going to be there relatively permanently for the rest of the series because this is something that's extremely high stakes to them, knowing that this is a reputation match. And that's even more so than a grudge match at the end of the day, as Geo is able to go ahead and open things up, look for something there on the shooter. And while that's the defending duelist, you're just looking at possibly what could happen on the retake. But with Case already shutting down the 2 A players allocated, you're not really nearly as stressed as what you were prior.
Right there.
Now, keep in mind, this series is possibly just a preview to what's to come in May for the SCL LAN. Both teams have made it with their finals appearance here for this split. And they are still the expected teams to make it to the finals on the LAN as well. And unless another team can pull off a big upset against either of these rosters, do a ton of VOD review, which they would have to for that event, and then also somehow in the process not lose to the other teams that are trying to look up at this Cumberland school, this Cumberland University, and shut them down as a whole, right?